Su-25 Flight 703 is tasked with destroying a bunker complex in the town of Bamut in southwestern Chechnya. Welcome to Mozdok, and welcome aboard my Su-25. The mission for today, as enumerated in the briefing, is to destroy a bunker complex located in the town of Bamut in southwestern Chechnya. I think I can probably get away with calling this mission semi-historical. At the very least, a mission vaguely like this was flown at some point. I'll get into a little bit of detail about that in a moment. Anyway, we've got flying speed, rotate, gear up, flaps up, and we can shut the landing lights off. And since we're going to be flying into combat, I will shut the navigation lights off immediately before I forget. And number 2 is up. We will commence a left turn towards waypoint 1, and once we steady up on our heading towards that, I'll explain a little bit more about the background of this mission. Well, I guess I can start that now, actually. So the battle for Bamut was a protracted series of engagements in the First Chechen War, fought between April of 1995 and May of 1996. We'll have a look at the map in a moment, and I'll show you where it is. But it's about the only battle from the Chechen Wars that can be properly represented on the DCS CAUCASUS map, because most of Chechnya is off the eastern edge of it. But while we're waiting for that, I will mention that if you look down at the ground, you might see some slightly different ground textures. I am finally using Barthek's CAUCASUS REDONE mod, which is honestly excellent. I've been sleeping on it for way too long. Highly recommend. Anyway, now that we are on track and establishing the climb, I'll open up the map. So the town of Bamut is down here. I've got a little bit of symbology drawn up on it, but that's not too important. So right in the at the eastern edge of the CAUCASUS map. But if we look at the chart overlay, you can see that off the edge of the map, like Grozny is over here, and a number of other towns like Achkoy Martan are not depicted on the DCS CAUCASUS map. So it's not perfect, but it's about as good as it gets. Now, if we look at the town, you can see it's a long, narrow settlement that's essentially in a valley between some mountains, and the initial engagements of the battle were all fought in these hills because it's in a valley, so control of the hills is vital for control of the town. Russian units skirmished with the militants in these various hills around the town, most famously on Hill 440, which was nicknamed Bald Mountain. And that action was pretty indecisive, and after that the battle pretty much devolved into a protracted siege, because really the reason it went on so long is because it's not very important. It's a small town at the end of the road. There were other priorities in the war. And in the end, the town was stormed on May 22nd, 1996 in a single-day decisive battle, and it was the last major land battle of the First Chechen War. But the mission we are conducting today falls in between those two engagements. So one of the sort of hallmarks of the battle was the fact that the militants were using a Soviet-era underground missile complex as part of their fortification network. And at some point, I haven't been able to figure out exactly when this happened, so I've somewhat arbitrarily put the date for this mission in February of 1996, partly to show off this lovely winter terrain. But anyway, an airstrike was conducted on this bunker complex with some kind of guided missile is about all the detail I was able to find on it. So that's why I'm calling this mission semi-historical, because, yeah, lean on details as to exactly what happened, as to what weapon was used, as to what aircraft fired it, what unit it belonged to, so... And also the exact location and layout of the bunker complex I've also kind of had to just take a bit of a guess at. So we will see that when we get there. In terms of what I have chosen, in terms of aircraft unit and weapon for this, if we have a look outside, you can see that I'm using a very nice skin for the Su-25, the link to which will be in the description, which represents an aircraft of the 461st Attack Regiment, which flew huge numbers of sorties in both Chechen wars. It was a little bit of the, it was kind of the backbone of the Su-25 force during that war. Has my wingman caught up yet? We shall see. I presume he will. But one bit of creative license that I'm taking by using this skin is the fact that the 461st was not stationed at Mozdok during the First Chechen War. It was stationed at Budyanovsk, which is also not on the DCS CAUCASUS map. It's up here. So off the edge of the map, not represented. The actual unit that was stationed at Mozdok during the First Chechen War was the 368th Attack Regiment, which I haven't been able to find a skin for the DCS Su-25, so yeah, taking some slight liberties here. But in terms of the weapons we're going to be employing, I've also taken a bit of a guess. If you look out on the wings on either side, we are carrying two KH-29L laser-guided heavy missiles. Again, no idea which weapons were used in the historical mission, but these would seem to make sense, since they're a large weapon that were specifically designed to penetrate hardened structures. So, and I don't use them very often. I very rarely employ guided weapons in the base model Su-25 because the aiming system kind of doesn't let you get very much out of them a lot of the time, so this mission will be a little bit out of the ordinary for me. I probably should have put in a little bit of range time, but I think I know what I'm doing with these. And we're also carrying, just for a bit of flavor really, R-60M air-to-air missiles, which were often carried by Su-25s during the Chechen Wars, because although there wasn't much of an air-to-air threat, there was some low-altitude smuggling of weapons, ammunition, supplies to the militants going on, mostly from Georgia. And I think on at least a few occasions, Su-25s did intercept those aircraft, so the missiles absolutely were carried historically, so I've brought them along. But I think that's about all I have to say for now. We're relatively close to the target, so we'll proceed to it. Welcome back. The town of Bamut is right off our starboard side there. Now, the bunker complex we're after should be at waypoint 2, which is on the west side of the town. And there's sort of a, I don't know, an L shape in the trees that I think I can more or less look for to figure out where that... And yes, I do believe I can see them down there. Targets are a pair of bunkers. I think I will attack those from east to west in order to have the best view. So I'll head west a little bit and separate. I'll tell my wingman to hold position. No particular need for him to expose himself to potential enemy fire, because in terms of threats, we have AAA and potential manpads to worry about down there. So separate a little bit. The KH-29 has pretty decent range. On the question of sort of transliteration from Russian, I should probably actually call it the Kha-29, because it's just one letter in the Cyrillic alphabet, but it's how it's usually rendered into English, so I guess I'll just stick with it. Anyway, point back in towards the town. We'll call up air-to-ground mode. I don't need to be in the clouds here. I'll start a shallow glide towards the target, which I've now lost sight of. Where? Come on, where'd you go? There. So as we drop below 3,500 meters, I'll put auto flares on, laser on, designate, fire. And this sight can be a little fiddly, so we just need to make sure we keep the pipper on the target and fly steady until missile impact. And target's hit. Pull up, laser off. And look out for any SAMs coming up at us. Probably flying away from the town is a good way to minimize the risk of that. I don't see anything just yet, and I have a pretty good view, so we'll climb out to at least 3,500 meters. We probably actually want to be higher than that, because the ground is probably a good long way above sea level here. How high is it, actually? Yeah, about 400 meters, so safety altitude for SAMs is probably about 3,900, but that being said, I haven't seen any, so we're probably okay. And we should be high enough now, so I'll head due east for a little bit and then turn back in to re-attack and hit that second bunker. And if that goes well, that should be everything seen to. Climb a little bit more, I guess. And I'll just continue to climb as we turn back in. And the cloud ceiling's at about like 4,500-ish anyway, so we'll stay out of that. Alright, now I had a bit of a tricky time spotting the target before. So we'll see if that ends up happening again. Shallow glide. And where are ya? There, I see it. Flares on. That was laser. Flares on, laser on. Designate. Shoot! And that's a hit. Laser off. Pull up. And probably egress north is a good idea, because there will be friendly ground forces dug in north of the town. I have placed those there where they were historically. And no obvious answering fire. Alright, and I can probably see both targets pretty well from here. Yeah, both are destroyed. So we'll just climb out of SAM range. And that'll be about that. Alright, 4,000, that's plenty, flares off. Wingman can rejoin. And I'll just do a single orbit so that he can catch up See if I can spot him. I think I left him sort of east of the target a little bit. Oh, yeah, there I see him under the clouds. All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, he'll be able to join up from there easily enough. I'll start a left turn. And he should fold in pretty nicely. Point 1 was my ingress point. That's quite close by. So from there, I'll just go directly back to base. And he shouldn't have much trouble catching up, I don't think. So, yeah, passing waypoint 1 again, we'll just call up the return mode on the navigation system. Yeah, there he is, catching up very nicely. I gave him a pretty light load since I wasn't expecting him to attack anything on this mission. He just has a pair of rocket pods, so that's that. Alright, well, with our objective accomplished, we will return to Mozdok. Welcome back. We are on a long final at Mozdok. We've made it back without incident. Now's probably a good time to order my wingman to return to base independently. And I'm just letting the speed come back, and then I'll get the gear and flaps out pretty shortly. Probably once we're back through 400 or so. And I'll fan the boards a little bit to get rid of some of that speed, but it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, back through 400, gear down, and flaps down. Aim for an approach speed of about 300. And we've ballooned some with the flaps coming down, so gotten a little bit high on the glide slope. No big deal. Incidentally, now that I just have lots of opportunity to look at it, I am absolutely thrilled with how the terrain looks with the CAUCASUS REDONE mod. Highly recommend it. I am using the sort of reduced snow submod, just because that seems to be what the climate is often like in the North Caucasus. There isn't like total snow coverage everywhere all the time, and I think it just kind of looks cool as well, and embodies the, shall we say, drab aesthetic one tends to get from photos and videos of the Chechen wars. Anyway, I'll just briefly focus on the landing here for now. So, as we come over the threshold, I'll bring the power back to idle. If anything, we're probably carrying a little bit of excess energy here. And into the flare. Speed brakes out. Parachute out. And now I don't think there's a taxiway we can actually vacate on for a while, so I'll drop the chute now and roll for a bit. In lieu of having a taxi chart on my kneeboard, I'll just pull up the F10 map here. And yeah, there's a taxiway coming up fairly shortly we can vacate on. Looks like my wingman had to go around because he tried to land immediately behind me. Oh well. I think that would basically be the controller's fault, actually, if he hasn't spaced the traffic correctly, but that's all a little bit theoretical given how almost non-existent ATC is in DCS. Alright, we'll vacate on this side, and for the sake of completeness, I'll taxi in and shut down, but that's all probably going to be relatively superfluous. So, once again, in lieu of a taxi chart, yeah, we'll pass this intersection and taxi to the main apron. We'll go to pretty much the far end was the what I had in mind as the designated spot. Leaving the flaps down, because that seems to be something that Su-25s do after landing, possibly. At least from what I've seen in pictures and videos, and also in actual aircraft, there are often good reasons to leave the flaps down after landing if there's, for instance, snow on the runway, which might have been thrown up into the mechanism, in which case it can be a good idea to make sure the mechanism is clear before you retract the flaps. I know that's SOP for a lot of airliners. Anyway, I'll try not to dither too much during the taxi in, because I don't have a ton more to say. Apart from that, the mission was very uneventful. I didn't see us getting engaged by any of the anti-aircraft defenses, which I did place down there at any point, so that might just be a byproduct of good tactics. I mean, this is kind of the thing about making missions in DCS is, like, in real life, you derive your tactics largely based on the threat so that you stay outside of its engagement envelope. This will mean that probably the majority of the time nothing's going to shoot at you, which makes it less exciting but more realistic, and I'm never quite sure how to strike a balance there. But we'll see. Probably the way to strike a balance is to do some more sort of high-threat, risky, low-level operations. That will definitely be coming sooner or later. Wingman's on final now. I'm not occupying the runway, so he won't have to go around this time. So that's all good. I guess we can watch him land by way of a bit of entertainment on the taxi in. And I guess this is the first time I've made a video where I actually used guided weapons in the Su-25. At least this Su-25. I did one in the Su-25T where I was demonstrating laser queuing for the KH-25s, but yeah. Because again, I relatively rarely find use cases for them because the fact that with laser-guided missiles you still have to point the aircraft at the target, it means that using guided weapons isn't really buying you standoff range as much as it's just buying you a little bit of extra accuracy. Accuracy which I'm usually quite capable of achieving with bombs and rockets, so that's generally why. Alright, so I'll go to spot 22, not that there's really any marking for it on the ground, so I'll just sort of park up wherever and not worry about it too much. Yeah. Sort of make a lazy left turn, and watch number 2 touch down. Although he might be behind that revetment when he actually touches down, so I might not be able to judge him on the smoothness of his landing. We'll see. Yeah, there he touches down. That seemed pretty smooth. Anyway, I'll put the lights off. Shut down the engines, electrics off, canopy open. Feel the cool February air on my face, or something like that. And that's probably going to be about it. So I hope this mission was at least vaguely interesting. I thought doing at least a semi-historical one would be kind of interesting, especially since it is possible to represent some smaller parts of the Chechen wars on the DCS Caucasus map. I might see what I can do with that in the future. But anyway, that's going to be it for now. Toodles.